Morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi and Andy Serling. As we get ready for today's 12-race card, we are off the turf in races 1, 8, and 10. The two stakes remain on. The horses had taken a little bit of give. I'm not exactly sure why, but it seemed like there was give during the week. The courses were closer to good, so a little bit of rain overnight. Probably not a bad idea to give the courses a little bit of a rest with the two stakes today.
I mean, it did seem like the horses were really kicking up some of that turf course, so it makes sense, but good to keep the stakes on still and plenty of good quality action still, even with those races coming off.
And who knows, maybe with a little bit of rain, we'll have a racetrack that's fair to all the players in the race instead of just a select few that are forwardly placed. That would also be nice for handicappers and everybody else alike. We'll head over to Naira Bets, as we do have quite a bit to talk about. Use the promo code MATCH200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. You can check out track stats while you're over there as well. Just keep them rolling, Eddie. I wasn't really paying attention. You told me what they were. Bankroll Builder, 50 to win in the Vosberg. You get $20 back towards the Breeders' Cup. Of course, the Breeders' Cup just 5 weeks away, getting closer and closer. We have contest. You'll have till post time today, $300 contest. Play it through Naira Bets. Head over to nairabets.com/contest for more information. We have a cross-country pick 5, 2 at Delaware, 3 here, including the Vosberg and the Pilgrim as well. Race 10, which is now off the turf also. And we are on from 12 to 6 today, covering all the action on FS2. Race 1 is off the turf. Where'd you go, Sarah?
Well, with the surface switch, I went to the horse that ran the best on dirt first time out, and that's Aviator Guy. I mean, running well behind 2 horses that tried graded stakes races in their next starts, and while both of them did regress, and Sandman and Innovator, that was some tougher company. And Chad Brown, when he switches horses over to the turf and stretches them out for maiden and 2-year-old second timers, it's not necessarily a good number, but when he does do this on the dirt, it's a much more positive statistic for him, especially here at Naira. He has a positive ROI of $2.19. He's 32%. So it just seemed like this one made some sense on this surface now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with the 4, who's currently favored, being bet off turf races. The 2 and 5 do figure like the best 2 horses, even though the 2 finished ahead of the 5 Thunder Roll. Thunder Roll showed more speed in that race and is probably forward here, but I don't disagree with you. I probably wanted those 2 horses. You have the first time, the MTO on the in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder if we're going to see a repeat of that second race, second time on dirt number that this horse got when finishing well beaten. But we did see some horses come out of that race, Classicist being one to run third yesterday, still waiting on a number for that race. But seems like the top 2 finishers of that race could be pretty okay. So I kind of wonder if this horse just didn't get out of the gate all that quickly, showing some of that greenness first out to tossing his head. Very wide going into that turn, just kind of a speed and fade. Maybe could do better in a shorter field.
All right, race number 1 is off the turf. Race number 2, there's a horse in race number 2, Man of Mischief, that I've copped out to because I don't know anything about the first-time starters. Not really sure why they tried the turf off of these efforts, and I know that he's finished second in both his starts, but the reality is he's run okay. Now, the worry with him is in this race, the winner of this race came back and ran horribly. Manhattan Twist, a Todd Pletcher firster, not the first one you'll see from that barn, comes back and not running well. But even in isolation, the 4th horse ran 16 buyer points worse, the 6th horse 9 buyer points worse. At least this horse has the first race to back it up. But I do think there has to be some concern about just how good this race was. Still, I went to Man of Mischief. I just was guessing with anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, and I picked this horse second. I was worried about that race, second time on the dirt. And then also, why did they switch to going long on the turf with this horse? I mean, sometimes these are the races that come up. But
why did Kenny go back to the turf with the 5 in the last race yesterday? After the horse ran so abysmally first time out. I don't know. It's a reasonable question, but I don't know that it necessarily,
it might not mean
it diminishes
anything,
the chances today. He probably wanted to check a box off, I guess, and he wanted to get another start at Saratoga.
Yeah, I mean, we did see Butter come back and improve, and then run a good second in the Bertram F. Bongard, but otherwise, it's not much coming from that dirt race that he exits. And I just wanted to go with somebody that seemed like a horse that, yes, debuted early as a 2-year-old, and maybe was against the racetrack a little bit and Shoot the Nickel, because that was a day where you did want to save ground a little bit more. And I know that Studley Do Right did not run quite that well in his more recent starts, but he was in some good form at that time, did save a lot of ground in that race. And yes, the speed and fade bothered me, and then this horse did get over to the rail in that Tremont. But before that check at the top of the stretch, this little bit of discouragement, he was caught fairly wide.
I know nothing about this horse. They ran a stake first time. He did show speed. It was a pretty quick pace. He'll probably be forward today. And I would guess if we have a track that's similar to the one we've had the last 3 days, that horse's chance would increase. I just put some guesses with first-time starters with a number 5 for Mike Trombetta picking up Irad as 1 and the 8, Chris's Revenge. Really, though, it's more of a turf pedigree, 3 Diamonds selling this horse and only selling for $20,000 at the OBS sale.
It is, but I think it's interesting that Mike Trombetta is reaching out to Ira Ortiz Jr., and I think that this is a sire that's off to a hot start. He's 25% with his 2-year-old first-time starters. Yes, 70% are hitting the board. So I think that he's producing some horses that when they've gotten to the racetrack this quickly, they can run a little bit.
All right, we'll see what happens in race number 2. Race number 3, we knew Linda Rice had to scratch 1/2 of them. She's decided to go with this one, Street Jam, that we haven't seen now for almost a year since being claimed at Keeneland. She drops the horse down. I was looking up 250 days plus off the claim in the dirt. Linda's 0 for 2, but they both finished second at 2-1 and 5-2. I don't know. You know, Sarah, I understand that I'm just sort of assuming this horse will show up, but I got to tell you, there's just nobody else in this race I want to bet.
Yeah,
I would rather the one was running, to be honest with
Really?
you. I prefer. Sure, I mean, her form, she just seemed like you could at least rely on her having run recently.
Well, doesn't Street Jam have a little bit more speed, and hasn't she run against better horses overall throughout her career?
But she doesn't have that much speed here, and we'll see how the track is playing.
I
Think
was-
Mim's going to wire the field?
No, I had kind of a crazy idea, but after seeing scratches, I think that Street Jam is just the class of this field. Ended up copping out with this one. Just when you look at who she's faced on the dirt overall, yes, she is coming off of a long layoff. It is a small sample size when you're looking at those horses, as you mentioned, when Linda Rice does bring them back off of a significant layoff. But at least they did some running. It's not like they finished hopelessly beaten at shorter prices. And so I just think that overall her body of work and who she's faced, it's just better than
She
what
made a
she's
bad
running
claim.
into.
She made a terrible claim. Claimed the horse for $60,000. Horse is off a year, comes back for 35. So she's already pretty significantly in with this horse. Having said that,
But did something
she's
go
probably
wrong in that
running a
last
spot
race?
where she thinks the horse can win. If
Yeah.
somebody wants to claim this horse and take their chances, I mean, it's, you know, it could go either way, I think. This horse could be, you know, Linda's just hoping somebody claims and the horse can't run it all anymore, or maybe the horse is going to show up and beat these horses, because when you start looking at the horses we have second and third, I mean, Progeny's never
even
run a
group.
particularly fast race in her life. She's also run against straight 3-year-olds throughout her entire career. The 9 backstretch Buzz, yeah, she got it done in a 4-horse field, but she was claimed away from Flying P. And I
do
don't
you
think
really want
anybody's
that?
running to bet horses that are claimed away from Flying P, whose horses were flying throughout the Saratoga meet.
They were, and I think that just overall, you don't want to take a horse at a short price that's leaving one very high percentage outfit and going into an outfit that doesn't have quite the same win percentage.
Gary had a very good meet at
He
Saratoga,
did.
to be fair.
He
I
absolutely.
mean, he started coming
and
around
I will
a lot.
say, Nutella Fellow ran great in that race at Belmont at Saratoga prior to that. But when you just look at the numbers, it's a difference.
He's on the he's in the Bermuda Triangle somewhere in
Nutella
Teleflow.
Fellow?
He's going to run once every year. Race number 4, the Woodward. Nobody is going to confuse this Woodward with the Damascus buck passer Dr. Fager Woodward. And you know, we've just gotten to a place in racing where basically nobody runs good horses very infrequently between the Pacific Classic and the Jockey Club Gold Cup and the
To the Breeders'
Travers
Cup.
and the Breeders' Cup.
Right.
Because these poor precious things, they just can't run that often. It's just, it hasn't been proven. It's only been proven because nobody seems to run them. So races, you know, with the Woodward, I mean, I'm an old guy. I've been around a long time when horses ran a lot. And I mean, listen, nothing against Skippy Longstocking. He's a very nice horse. We'll take a look at him. He's an extremely likely winner of this race. If you have yesterday's racetrack, he's 1-9 to get it done. Nothing against him at all. He's a nice horse, and he would belong in the Woodward,
Sure.
regardless who was running. And Crouppy's improved, and Tapatrice has had his moment. But I mean, these fields are so small, and we have Churchill Downs, which announced a new stake race every month to coincide with our stake races. And you look at the Awesome Again, they made it $1 million. It's a pretty hurting field out there. It's just nobody runs anymore. And at some point, you have to figure out, we have to figure out, obviously other tracks aren't going to work together. Churchill adds races, they don't take them away. We have to figure out what to do with these races, because
Right.
it's not, and I respect everybody that showed up in this race and we appreciate it. It's not them.
No, it's not their fault.
If these races can't be supported anymore, what's the point? Would this be a better race being run? later in
Should
the
it be
year.
moved back to the end of Saratoga?
I don't
Yeah.
know what we can't move to Saratoga, but
Sure.
we got rid of the Alydar this year, and rightfully so. I don't know what to do, and you hate to see a race like the Woodward, which is historically one of the greatest races of all time.
Yeah.
It arguably had one of the greatest runnings we've ever had of a race when those three met. And now, nothing against the horses here, and we do appreciate them, but these races have just fallen by the wayside.
Well, and when you have the expectation and the precedent set by so many of the great horses running in a race like this in the past, when you see this field, it just doesn't quite satisfy the appetite for what we've seen in the past. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with this group of horses. It's still a competitive race. They're still okay horses, but it's not the Woodward of 2004, of 2009.
It's not that competitive. And if we have yesterday's racetrack, the one is a complete cinch, and that works well against Krupe, who's obviously improved. And, he was picking up pieces, running second last time. But listen, he's a cool horse. I mean, you got to give him credit. He seems to show up. Really, at this point, he shows up, other than Dubai World Cup, every time, and at least does some running in these races.
Does. And I mean, I think that you just have to respect the horse that he's become since that Pegasus, where he finished third and really had no reason to, because he's run well against paces that don't necessarily set up for him. He's run well against track biases that may not be suiting horses that are coming from off the pace. He has run well against one of the top older horses and next at a distance that maybe isn't even
Well,
his.
he didn't run well. He was a distant second.
He was there.
He beat Drake's Passes because Drake's Passes chased, so he didn't really run well in there.
But look, I mean, he's a horse that just merits some respect. He just doesn't win that often, and he's pace compromised.
Right, and I feel like Tapit Trice is not going to be as pace compromised. I think in a small field he'll be sitting outside Skippy Longstocking, and I think he's got races that give him a chance to beat him. And instead of taking 2-5 on Skippy Longstocking, I just took the alternative and in Tapit Trice to try to be a little bit closer, stalk that one, and hopefully run him down. He did not run well in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but his prior effort at Monmouth was okay. So I'll give him a chance to turn the tables here, and if he's going to be third choice, I'm happy to take those odds. I just don't see how Krupe wins. I'm not saying Tapit Trice is going to win, but at least I can make a path to the winner's circle for him.
Right, and then I think it just depends on how aggressive do you really want to be with Mass Parade, who I don't think is a win contender, but does he affect Skippy Longstocking in any way, or Tapit Trice?
No.
Do they try?
No.
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 He has a race or two that could put him forward.
No, he doesn't.
We haven't seen it in a while, but...
Okay, we'll agree to disagree. Race number 5, and I think forward matters a lot in here because with the scratch of the number 6, there's not a lot of pace in this race, and I think some of it comes down to where you stand with Neural Network, who ran this big figure last time, and a legit figure with Left and Behind running so far behind them. He's always been a horse I thought would be better with a little less distance, so maybe the cut back to a mile will help. We'll see, however, how forward he can be, and the horse he may have to beat, Bourbon Chase, is probably a horse that's going to be much more forward, especially with the scratch of the number 6. I think it hurts him a little bit, and because it helps the others' competition, the 5.
No, I think that's fair, and I think that Mighty Atlas, it's very simple what he's likely to do in this race. He's probably going to go try to establish forward position, drawing towards the inside, cutting back a little bit in distance, and not quite getting that mile and an eighth in that last race, but I like the number that Neural Network showed us that he improved to, coming back, first time on the dirt off of that layoff, first time on the dirt as a 4-year-old. We often talk about that step forward from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, showing that progressive improvement, and I think he did that. And it sort of verified that he could be one of the okay New York bred horses in the older horse division. I think that he's not going to be so far out of it that he's going to be compromised. And I think he'll just sit that kind of stalking trip depending on what they do with Mighty Atlas and Bourbon Chase.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's going to be very close. He was behind a pretty moderate pace last time. And I think as we look at Bourbon Chase here, I think Irad would be well suited to be aggressive, even on a fair racetrack. He potentially could have a pace advantage. Maybe Two's a Crowd's going to go inside of him. The problem with this horse is he's got 8 seconds. Now, to be fair, a lot of them were earlier in his career. Having said that, he's piled up 3 in a row, and he's a short price every single time he runs. But Silver Satin's not bad, who beat him last time. He ran a big race, and so it's not as though he lost to some sort of bum that he's finishing second to. And, you look at the race before, right? He's second to General Banker, who's pretty good. He's second to Unoho when he decided to run one of his good races. So it's not like he's running second in just sort of a bunch of crap.
Right.
He's running second to reasonable horses. Now, Neural Network's a pretty good horse, too, so you could run second to him also.
Sure, and I mean, when you look at his form recently, yes, he's not winning, but he has been very consistent. And he's running against some quality horses. As you mentioned, he's running similar numbers.
It's the horse to beat.
Yeah.
He's just the horse to beat, even if you don't trust him, and like us, you put him second or third.
Right.
He's the horse to beat
No,
in
he
this
is.
race. He's tactical, and he runs fast races consistently.
Yeah, this is just not one of the horses I rush to bet because he's a short price and he hasn't won that much.
I don't think Neural Network will be forward, and I'm not confident my horse can be forward as well. I just felt like Shadow Dragon would be a bit of a better price, and I want to take him as a horse that never saw the rail really in his last start. A day the rail was very good. He moved a little early in that race. That race fell apart late when a horse came up the inside, and he's not a winning type either, to be honest with you, with those 5 seconds.
No, but he's not going to be the favorite.
And he's been a lot of short prices, right, but he's not going to be that short today. So I thought I'd take him as the alternative. We saw the same 3 horses in just slightly different, same 4 actually, in slightly different order. We'll break after race number 6, which is the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. Sorry to see True Quality come out of this race, a horse that was not without a chance off his last. But I think we should start by talking about Farbridge and Silver Knot and their relative chances in this race. The 2 questions that come out of this is, did Farbridge just get lucky? And did Silver Knot come apart for no apparent reason? And how reliable is he, considering how badly he ran in this race going forward? Because obviously, if he gets back to his Man of War, he's the worst to beat in this race. But I think you have to be a little bit worried that he's completely tailed off.
Well, I think that last race is worth questioning, but I think that we both answered those 2 questions in a similar fashion because you liked Farbridge that day, and it's not as though he had no talent whatsoever prior to that, but he's one of those horses that seems to do his better running when he's able to save ground and rally inside of horses rather than making that wide sweeping move. And Joel was aggressive. He put him on the front end. He's not getting the lead today.
Well,
in my opinion.
I don't care about that. I'm not picking Farbridge because I got the money with him at 8-1, and he's going to be less than half the price that today. He's exposed now. I don't need him. I got the money with him, so I've moved on. If Joel, and now keep in mind, it's a 5-horse field. If Joel can get this horse to the rail, he doesn't need to be in front. And the thing about Farbridge, I think there will be a misconception that he just got lucky last time. Well, he ran 100 Beyer 2 races back behind Measured Time, who ran much better that day than he ran in the Sword Dancer. And he's a quirky horse that's his own worst enemy. His trips are a result of his problems, not bad rides. He makes good riders look bad.
Well, he makes problems when they don't need to be there.
But I don't think he should be. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to completely dismiss him, say, oh, he got lucky on the front end. And I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying a lot. And I have him 4th too, but because I just don't think he's going to be any value today.
And
but I think he's a horse that has shown over and over again that he's good enough to compete here, especially if you don't trust Silver Knot. Now, you and I both think he's going to run better Silver Knot, but his last race stunk.
It wasn't good. I mean, we're looking at a race that was not one of his better ones and a significant regression than what he'd done in his past 2 races. And I think that even if you go back to his Bowling Green, was that such a strong performance?
No, it was a bad one.
It was really the race before that, the Man of War,
Agreed.
where he kind of had this coming out party of being forwardly placed and surviving some faster fractions and still going on to win pretty convincingly. So I think that race puts him into contention. But it's also a question of how you think the pace is going to pan out if the course has some give in it like it did last year, where horses aren't able to make up as much ground as they were at a time where we did see that crazy long shot try to run them off their feet.
Well, we don't have that kind of bog, but I think there's another question that should be asked, which is, are these Godolphin horses that were stabled in Saratoga and have been in America for closing in on 6 months, 5 months, are they starting to tail off? Look at how badly that horse ran up at Woodbine. Look at how badly all their horses ran at Woodbine.
Sure.
They have been dominating Woodbine. They have been beating up on everybody at Woodbine. This horse uncharacteristically stinks last time. I just wonder a little bit if maybe, this could be completely wrong, but I wonder a bit if those horses are a little over the top.
It could be, but I think that when you look at the uncharacteristic way that race was run in terms of Farbridge taking the lead and being forward and really just leading everybody on a merry chase, it's not as though we saw somebody make up significant ground other than...
Why? Oh, but that makes him worse, because he was sitting on top of the slow pace. I mean, you're making an argument that he's even worse than he ran.
I just want him to be a little bit more forward than he was in that last race, because...
He was... What are we talking about?
I want him to be sitting just off of a horse like Get Smokin', who I think is going to go faster early than Farbridge did last time.
Okay, we'll get to that conversation. I think we saw it a little bit differently, and he did fine when he rated 5 lengths behind an honest pace 3 races back in the Man of War, and maybe that's his best trip in here. And then there's Warlike Goddess. And the fact that there's some give in the ground is certainly not going to hurt her. Now, it's nowhere like it was last year.
Right.
This was an absolute bog. We had gotten a ton of rain. We ended up taking off the
like
Jockey Club Derby off of the, or Jockey Club Invitational. Hopefully this year could be the last running. It's not the same course, but she doesn't seem like she's lost a step at all, does she?
No, and I mean, she's a horse that over the last couple of years seems to have taken those couple of starts to get back into the same winning form, but it's not as though she's been running bad races. She's been running races that don't set up for her whatsoever, and it's been over cases where horses are wiring the field.
She has a remarkable record for a deep closer.
Yes.
You know,
yes, she does.
It's pretty amazing, and she should have won the Breeders' Cup 3 years ago, actually, when she didn't get the best of trips that day. I would say, and listen, I've got her third in here and behind Silver Knot, and I'm kind of regretting it, thinking about it more. At least she's reliable. She shows up every time, and I think this is sort of a make or break race for Silver Knot.
I think
who's
that's
obviously
fair.
good enough to win.
I think that's
but,
fair.
As far as Get Smokin' and Emmanuel, we'll take a look at the United Nations. I don't know that Emmanuel's good enough to win this race, though he has run some pretty fast races at different times in the past. But I know he actually ran extremely well in here, and probably the best race of anybody. One of the reasons I like Farbridge was that he had no chance of the 3-wide trip with the rails down. Well, Emmanuel never saw the rail. He was 2 wide or more the entire way around the racetrack. And what he was doing, I didn't see that supposed really steady early. What was this horse doing 8 lengths behind? He's a speed horse. Mm-hmm. This is a horse that has the speed to be forward in shorter races.
Yep.
He actually has more speed than Get Smokin'.
If they want to use it.
Yeah, and they should use it. Do I think he's going to be in front of Get Smokin'? Probably not.
Does he want to go a mile and a half?
I don't know. He ran a mile and 3/8, and he was closing at the end 2 races back. And Mike Maker seems to understand how to get these horses to win going long better than any trainer in the history of the game. So I'm not going to discount that. Why is he even running him here? Why is he doing this? He got a ridiculous trip. He ran very well at Monmouth, and he's going to be forward. And, you know, I almost think a little bit it's like that. I always go back to My Heart Belongs to Daddy, the New York bred a few years ago, who had no speed at all, that everybody dragged. They just ripped their faces off to get behind her because she had ones in her thing going 26 and 52.
Right.
And it's like, Get Smokin', man, he can go a little bit. If Get Smokin' really wants to lead, let him go. But if he doesn't, get to the front. And do I think Manuel's going to win this race? Probably not. But I think he has a better chance than his 10-to-1 odds to win this. So I'm going to pick him on top because I do think his race 2 back was okay.
Yeah, I think he's interesting. I think he has those races at times, and I think that putting the blinkers on says that they're not going to ride him like they did last time, at least, even if he isn't necessarily on the lead. Back to War Like Goddess for a second. Over the past month, Bill Mott has cooled off considerably.
Who are the horses he has run that were supposed to win?
I don't know, but for a trainer that's this good to have 1 for 36.
I know Leanna gave me a speech the day Barnes been dead. We were talking about it yesterday.
And that will change.
But I get it. But who are the horses that didn't show? I mean, like yesterday, he lost by a head or a nose.
Sure.
That horse ran super.
That horse ran great.
Yeah, I mean, that horse is a stakes horse.
But to look at his time in Saratoga and his time last year around this time, to be 1 for 36 over the past month here at NYRA.
What did he do in Saratoga last summer?
He was winning everything with his turf horses that were
going
going
at
up for his
Belmont when he
maidens.
got back?
He was here with War Like Goddess, with all those horses that were prepping
But
for the Breeders' Cup, with just FYI.
Did he win a lot in Saratoga?
Yes.
He won a lot in Saratoga. He won here.
He won a lot in Saratoga.
The question is, take a look at his starters at Belmont at the Big A since we came back, and tell me what how many horses were under 5-to-1.
All right, let's.
I mean, I think it's relevant. I don't.
No, I think that's
could
a
be
fair
wrong,
question to ask,
but I remember because
but-
Leanna and I were talking about it yesterday, and I said to her, "Have you really been running a bunch of horses that were supposed to win?" Feels like they've had a lot of mediocre
Closing
2-year-olds running.
So do you want?
No, I want just look at all of them. Just look at all the horses
Okay.
since September 13th, whenever we started racing,
all
right?
One was under 2-to-1, another one under 2-to-1.
Who were they?
Nolita, Sovereignty, Reynolds
Well, Sovereignty
Channel,
got beaten ahead.
Dancing Dean.
Hang on, slow down. Sovereignty got beaten ahead. Okay,
Yeah.
there was no voodoo there.
I'm not
Lolita
saying
was.
it's voodoo,
Let me
it's
just.
just
Lolita was against the track yesterday. And I'm just. Who else?
Arthur's Ride in the Jockey Club.
No, that was it. That was at Saratoga.
It's the past month at NYRA.
Okay. All right.
It
well,
fits.
Arthur's Ride was a ridiculous bet against.
War Like Goddess, Miss Lao, Soothe, Executive.
Well, War Like Goddess ran great.
Suited. She did. I'm not saying they're not running. I'm saying it's something that's worth considering as an 8-to-5 favorite in a race like this.
Okay, we disagree, but that's fine. Okay, we'll see what happens. That's the first half. We'll come back with the pick six, starting in race number 7.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Sarah and I are debating a handle on a race bet a little bit later. I don't know. I thought I went a little low. I think you're a little too low. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
race number 7.
There's a lot of other racing going on today.
I was excited today. I was really looking forward to betting me Bella Genio. She scratched. We now have the same horse on top. I'll let you talk about Mel.
Is it Mel Mel?
I don't care. I don't know or care, to be
Okay,
honest.
great. Well, Frank Miramotti said Mel Mel, so we'll go with it
Okay.
for now.
Well, then why'd you ask?
There can be discrepancies, you never know. But look, a horse that was favored first time out, yes, it was an off the turf race. Yes, this horse did finish 4th in there and goes out for Flying P here, gets Ira Ortiz Jr. board, not going to be any sort of great massive price in here, but I thought that this horse ran okay after not breaking all that well, rushing up, showing a little bit of speed, being caught a little bit wider on a day where you likely wanted to be forward and saving some ground, and just seems like the money this one took first time out, coming in, now taking Ira Ortiz Jr. up for Flying P and showing a little bit of speed, and I think that if this one can get out of the gate, could do okay.
I want to ask David how stoned he was that he didn't make this horse the morning line favorite. How is this horse not the favorite? This horse is going to be 2 to 1 or less. If this horse isn't a short price, this horse has no chance. Now, I understand when this horse ran, every single Flying P horse was winning. But they loved this horse. And, didn't break, was wide the whole way. I don't know, the inside was good as much as speed was an advantage, but was against it, didn't break, whatever the case was. This horse was 4 to 5 and now gets Ira Ortiz for Sean Bridgman. And he's going to be...
And working well
so
since.
David must think that the 2 Nilos Rose, it's not like he made that horse that short, but he must obviously think this horse is working very well or something, because I looked at this race when I first looked at it and I said, well, Mel Mel's going to be 8 to 5. Let me pick somebody else on top of her. And then I saw his morning line. I thought, is that possible? I mean...
I don't think this horse is going to be 9 to 2. I'll say that.
Well, there's no way she's going to be 9 to 2. The question is she going to be 9 to 5 or less?
Yeah, and I think
maybe David's usually right, but I don't
know.
get it.
Looking at this first-time starter for Rob Falcone Jr., when I was looking at this one that David had made the morning line favorite, when he does that, I try to look at these horses and see, okay, like clearly something must be going on with this horse for him to see it and see the workouts and see the sales and work. But I don't know. I wasn't absolutely in love with this horse, looking at this horse without that price. It was a professional work. It was a quick work in 21 flat, but this horse seemed really urged along and seemed to be...
Horse worked fast in Saratoga, 47-2. I put the horse second even before I saw David's line. I mean, where else are you going to go? Carroll said no off the second at Monmouth. Neither one of us, are particularly excited by that horse. I mean, I just don't know where else to go. I guess Frankie Hiccups has a chance in this race. I suppose Tekka get back that first race, but that looks like a bit of a phony race. I don't know really else to go in here.
Yeah, I mean, Frankie Hiccups, we saw with the Angels come back and run extremely well.
With the Angels caught a big bias and improved 7 points. Are we sure that she really improved, or the track?
Do you think that
she's
she at
really
least
good.
replicated it?
I do. No, yeah. I do. But he ran a 51 buyer. If he runs a little better than that, he can win this race.
Yeah.
But he's probably not beating Mel Mel, who ran a 41 buyer with sort of things not going right.
But as you said, where else do you go?
Yeah, no, listen. I think Mel Mel's going to be a huge favorite, win or lose in this race. I'll tell you what. If Mel Mel's 9 to 2. She ain't winning.
Wrong. Yep.
Yeah.
Some words out on somebody else.
I was very surprised. Maybe you and I are just wrong about her. I don't know, but
it won't be the first time.
No, won't be the first time today, or the last time today. Race number 8. There were some surprising scratches. Now I know there were a couple of vet scratches in here of horses that were going to run, but they were vet scratches. So I don't know if it was like the 14 or the 11 or the 9 horses you would have thought stayed in here. You have the 4 Run, Don't Walk on top.
Yeah, I mean, 3 out of the 4 horses I liked.
Because the Rob Atras barn has been so hot for the last 4 months?
No, because 3 out of the 4 horses that I liked in this race on dirt are not playing today.
Okay. By just bringing up that you're talking about trainers that aren't winning, I mean, he's got 2 dirt wins in the last 4 months.
but hasn't been hot. And this horse is not an 8-5 favorite.
So you think because Mott won a lot of races in Saratoga in the last month, they're not running?
Because Mott is generally not as streaky of a trainer and has more consistency.
Oh, Mott
overall.
can go 0 for 20 like nobody's business because Mott doesn't care. He just runs his horses.
It's not at all an insult or indictment. It's
No,
just
I didn't say it was an insult. I'm making it clear.
Yeah.
Mott's going to go through 0 for 20 streaks more than other people because he runs his horses and he doesn't look at his win percentage. And it's frankly what I think is one of the most admirable things about him besides his talent as a trainer. That's a barn that doesn't worry about losing, whereas a lot of barns worry about losing more than they probably should.
Right. And
he doesn't care.
And I have no problem with running horses in spots where we want to see them run. That's all it is. But when you're taking short prices and you have numbers that say maybe take another look, that's all it is. So with Run Don't Walk, at least the Grand Dam is flashing, a horse that we know very well on this circuit, ran well on dirt. There is some dirt pedigree. The Dam never raced. The Maximus Mischiefs are doing okay first time out. And I don't know. I mean, when you look at the works for this horse, it seems like to be that pattern of work a little bit quicker, more of a maintenance work a little bit faster out of the gate. And I just did not have a super strong opinion in here after a horse that I actually really liked from the main track onlys scratched out.
I really like the 7 Pawtucket Shuffle. I was going to bet on the turf, even though I prefer to bet this horse in the dirt. It's more of a dirt pedigree. This horse was wide against a gold rail in the debut, and I think actually did a little bit of running in there, and I prefer Pawtucket Shuffle over a bunch of horses that were entered to run the turf first time. I obviously have Run Don't Walk in there as well, and I have Silsby in there, a logical horse for Vacoma for George Weaver, though you wonder a little bit about a Vacoma being entered on the turf for the first time, but I'm not going to let this horse beat me the way the Vacomas have been running.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I kind of wondered about
lot
the
of money
turf
for
as
this
well.
horse.
And yes, I agree. But it seemed like there were a lot of turf intentions with the last 2 turf works. I don't know. I could just be overthinking it. But kind of interesting that Disco Star stays in. And generally, this is one of those horses that I want to bet against because it's taking a lot of that turf money. But some of the siblings actually have run okay on the dirt as well. And going to the number 15, Nina Kay, half to Z-Bear, half to Newport Bridge, who, again, no world beaters here, but in a field like this, having that little bit of pedigree could mean something.
I love those Cupids. Listen, Disco Partners is Disco Rico, so there's no reason that his horses couldn't be able to run in the dirt, but I'm going to go to the 7 Pawtucket Shuffle. We'll see what happens in race number 8 off the turf. Race number 9, the Vosberg. Comedy Town scratched. I guess we're both going to try to wire the field with Dean Delivers, who I think is going to be favored in this race, going to vie for favoritism with Scotland. I know that I rads on Mufasa, but I will bet David. I will bet David lunch. If you want, you're down for lunch. That Mufasa will not be a shorter price than both Scotland and Dean Delivers. How is Dean Delivers not? Especially, now, we don't know how the track's playing, but even on a fair racetrack.
Fair racetrack, is he not the most consistent horse in this field now?
And he's run well. He ran a good third in Saratoga behind the Killers last year. So it's not like he's never brought his form here. He's got to get 7 furlongs. Now, he's done it, though, in the past, and he's the speed. And, I mean, okay, I'm not saying the 6 can't win, but he's got 1 race. He beat Repo Rocks last time. I mean, 1 race. Are we really supposed to bet him off 1 big figure at Colonial Downs? I love Nacho, but I don't want to bet him.
I don't know. I think that this field, it's not exactly full of standouts afterwards. So depending on price, maybe he's worth a look. And it was a high number, and Repo Rocks is Repo Rocks, and he can show up with high numbers, and he can show up with not so high numbers in some of his races. But he at least came back and ran okay in his subsequent start. And it seems as though this was a horse that, running against Gulfport first time out, Gulfport was a pretty promising 2-year-old for Steve Asmussen. Maybe that field was not quite the nobodies as it might look at first glance in comparison to this field. Maybe just needed a start off the layoff and first time in the U.S. So I don't know. I don't want to discount this horse. I think that this horse could be a little interesting, but I think price will tell.
I've got him 3rd by default here. I think if he's short, he's the horse you're supposed to bet against. Scotland is the hard one to read, and you can't like him because he's coming from that diseased Bill Mott barn where all the horses are crawling around in their bellies.
That's not what I'm saying at all, and you know that.
Apparently they can't win because Bill hasn't won a race in the meet yet.
Also
But anyway,
didn't say that either.
well, you're leaning on
Numbers are numbers. You say them all the time.
Yeah, I have different opinions about the way numbers are handled by people,
And that's
I don't
completely
feel as
fair.
though horses have been running poorly from that barn. I don't think there's any indication that there's some sort of virus going through it and how it would affect
again, not
horses.
what I
The horse
said at
like
all.
this. The problem with it is a suggestion. You're making a suggestion,
making a
that they're
suggestion that those are
dramatically
the numbers.
underperforming, and I don't think they are.
I'm not saying they're underperforming. I'm saying that when you look at horses at short prices, you might want to think about who else in that field might have an opportunity when you're playing multi-race bets?
If you don't think they're underperforming, why are we having this conversation?
It's because of price. You don't want to take a short price on a barn that isn't winning at a high percentage right now when they usually do.
I don't agree with this in any possible way. I think you're changing the language. The question with Scotland is, he got sick after he won last time. Now he has had 4 works. I would assume he got sick. I can't believe he had a major issue. Maybe he does have some foot issues or something, but he didn't work for a while, which is concerning. It is good to see him back, and this was a prep for the Forgo. Now, I'm not saying he would have beaten Milliken, but he was good this day, and this was a funny day where we had a huge inside bias for the first 4 or 5 dirt races, and then there was a big gap of about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it seemed like the track changed dramatically for this race. But he ran very well, and I think he's super dangerous here.
He did run very well. I don't necessarily know how to read that race in terms of the way that the track played throughout the day, because that number, yes, he's run fast races in the past. Yes, he had run some fast races as a 3-year-old, including that curling performance at Saratoga, but that was a big step forward from what he had run in the prior race at Churchill, as well as the race prior to that, where he was favored and did absolutely no running at all. So I kind of just wonder how to really assess this horse's true ability this year. And I don't know that I want to take him off his last race at a shorter price.
Well, he's run fast races before. It didn't come out of nowhere. I'd prefer to take a horse like him that's done it before, Dean Delivers. And Dean Delivers, by the way, was not on a good rail last time out, which is the reason his figure was lower. And he still won down in a deeper inside than a horse like Mufasa, because I am not taking horses off of one dirt figure at Colonial Downs where they run almost never on the dirt. So I just don't want to trust him off that, but obviously I could be wrong. Race number 10 came off the turf. I don't think there were any major surprises other than the number 14 coming out. Now maybe this was a vet scratch for all I know, surprising scratch. And we both have the number 15 on top, who figures to be a short price in here, and that's Floki's Fight off the claim for Linda Rice.
Yeah, nothing creative here, just a horse that had faced some solid company throughout his career prior to that last race. Ran well to finish second behind Nelson Avenue. Seems to be a more consistent type when he's spotted in races that make sense for him. And I think that now with this race coming off the turf, this race makes plenty of sense for him based on who he's faced in the past. I like him going to the Linda Rice barn. You know how good she is off the claim with horses like this. And he's just one that I think
just better than these horses.
Lays over this field by comparison.
I agree. I mean, you've got OP Firecracker second, and you're hoping this horse gets improved by Atris off the claim, and he's not winning either. And listen, I've got the worst third too. This horse's last race was atrocious.
It was.
I mean, this horse has no chance to win this race off his last race.
No.
I mean,
No.
it's just, I mean, frankly, assume nothing's better.
I considered Assume Nothing being ahead of OP Firecracker, but I just didn't love that it was a non-winner's a one condition that he finally broke through as of late versus a horse.
Run some fast figs though at times.
He has.
Just recently. No, I don't love him either. I don't trust the 16. Now listen, maybe the 16 improves, but that's a barn that horses have not been improving. We've seen Rob win a lot of races and they're not really running. What about Magical Ways staying in here? I mean, I know he was chasing last time. That was a pretty fast pace for him to be chasing, and he can be a bit forward. He's run some good races on the dirt in the past.
He has. I kind of wonder, with the switch to turf, it seemed like after that race at the mile, March 30th, he really perked up when switching over to the turf course. And then that race last time, I don't have to hold that against him. We saw Phileas Fogg come back on yet another biased racetrack and run very well. So I think that he has the dirt form in comparison to some of the other horses left in here, and he might not be as short of a price as horses like Irish Prophet or even Wonderful Justice.
Yeah, no, I think he's a little bit dangerous. The more I look, the more I wish I maybe put him second in here. I know they can. It's funny, Irish Prophet's getting in. I know he's got that fourth off the turf at Santa Anita. I don't like that horse at all. We come along, excuse me, to the 11th race, the Pilgrim, and we'll look at Zulu Kingdom to kick it off. A horse who is going to be a heavy favorite. We both have him second. Go ahead.
Look, he ran well in that race with anticipation his first start in the U.S. and just seemed like a horse that really had a nice turn of foot. He did save ground in that race, but I like that he got that split through on the inside and seemed to be a brave type to really come through there. And I just felt as though he could be one of the good ones for Chad Brown moving forwards. He makes a lot of sense in here. He had a nice acceleration. It seemed like he wasn't really going to relent to Tenacious Leader, even though that horse started coming back at him towards the end of that race. And it just seems like the horse to beat.
Yeah, I thought he had a perfect trip. I thought the second horse ran the better race and probably should have beaten him. He's okay. He ran a big figure. He's going to be a short price in here. I put him second, but I think there are some other alternatives. We both have Noble Confessor on top.
Yeah, just a horse that has a little bit of dam side turf move up pedigree and just seems like one that, when looking at the numbers for Todd Pletcher, when he is switching these 2-year-olds over from dirt to turf in graded stakes past 5 years, it is a small sample size, but he's 3 for 6 and 5 for 6 in the exacta. Now, 4 of those 6 turf graded stakes were routing, and the only one where the horse did not hit the exacta was a sprint. So I think that's a number that kind of speaks for itself, is a move that he doesn't make with a ton of horses, but when he does, it's with intention, and they usually show up and run pretty well.
Yeah, I thought he'd be the inside speed in this race and thought that the 4 was vulnerable and didn't like some other horses in here. They were going to be shorter prices, so I thought I'd take a small chance with him to wire the field. I don't really want to take the Maiden Flying Mohawk off a race that was decent at Kentucky Downs. Those races just, I don't know what to do with them. And the horse that I'm not really a big fan of is the likely second choice, and that's this horse, Concord Green. I know he had a smidgen of trouble after breaking a little slow early, but man, he got such an unbelievably great ride from Dylan Davis. I think he's extremely vulnerable in here. He was on a good rail almost the entire way and just seemed like he just had everything his own way, and he's the one I would play against here.
Which is fair. He had a good trip, but there's quite a bit of pedigree for this horse as well. Plenty half-siblings did run well and continue their careers in these turf routes. So, yes, I think he got a good ride. We don't necessarily know how strong this race was, but we did see a couple of horses come back and run.
Well, the horse that finished 4th in here should have won because he got a bad ride by Flavian Pratt. And he came back and he got beaten in a photo here and ran slightly better, but he didn't even run that much better from a figure standpoint, and he had a much, much worse trip than Concord Green. If you switch trips, he would have probably beaten him by 2 or 3 lengths. So that makes me a little dubious about the race.
But I thought Davy Crockett had a pretty decent trip in that race, and he came back and he ran okay in that next race as well, and it just seems like...
Did he?
He ran okay.
He's just not very good. He just ran 3rd. He
Well,
just
how
sat
good is everybody
behind.
else?
Well, I mean, you would presume, you and I both think the 1's going to improve. The 4 clearly ran better than he did last time. And I don't like Concord Green. It's fine. You've got him 3rd, and that's fine. We disagree. I just think he's going to take money in here, and I'm against him. I don't know what to do with early adopter. I don't know how good he really is in here. We'll look at his race. He got a very good ride by Manny, but I would take a chance that he takes a step forward more than some others in here.
This is a race where you can kind of see, even though the course is rated firm, there is some of that kick up on the turf course as far as the clods of dirt with the grass. And I just thought that he was ridden very well prior to the stretch, and then he has to make that outside move. And it just seemed like he really got engaged here and kicked on well. And it seems as though he's a horse that could be yet another one of these good ones for Klarvich and Chad Brown. The number was not that high, but I don't really necessarily think that that means a ton for a first race on the turf routing going into this race. The number for Concord Green a little bit higher. We've seen some horses come back at least.
Yeah, there are horses, though, that had, well, Davy Crockett's Davy Crockett. We'll see what happens in race number 11, the Pilgrim, as this is, I believe, your win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. The Juvenile Turf races in the Breeders' Cup, the races everybody wants to be in. Race number 12, well, I have them 3rd and 4th, I think, by default, the 8 and 9, but I don't particularly want horses coming out of this race, and that's one of the reasons that I prefer horses like the 12 and 1. You can show the replay, Eddie, of 12 Hours a Day in Ramsey's. I thought this was just an awful race.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think that it's a claim that merits a look, going from this barn that was a lower percentage in Saratoga over to Linda Rice. Linda Rice ceased to claim this horse and has at least been running some numbers in the last 2 races that are somewhat similar, even with stretching out in distance. I don't love this race either. It might not be very good. I'm just hoping that this is a horse that does move up when switching barns.
Yeah, the problem with that, and you could be right, I have certainly is a distinct possibility, but you're getting IRADs, you get no price. Claiming off low percentage barns is just a move that does not work very often. That's the problem with that.
Yeah.
You just don't see these barns get claimed from that often for a reason, because they frequently don't improve like you'd think they would. I mean, it's, you'd think, oh, why don't people claim from the low percentage barns? There's a reason, and one of the reasons is, for whatever reasons are, they don't come back and run well. I was surprised Linda took this horse, to be honest, especially after running 4th in that horrible race, the race before it.
Right.
It's an odd claim for her.
And I think that it is that bit of a head scratcher because we do trust her judgment in claiming horses the majority of the time. And she
Maybe
doesn't
the owners wanted to claim the horse. You don't really know. Yeah. It's an odd claim for her. Not saying the horse can't win, but I don't like claims from those barns. I think Guile's going to win this race. I'd love to see Manny Franco be aggressive in here, even in a fair racetrack, breaking from the outside, going on the dirt for the first time for the new connections. He's not a turf horse. No. They tried him on the turf. he stunk on the turf before, and he stunk afterwards. He gets back to his good dirt races. He'll probably win this race. Though I do think the Dead Mott Barn, I'm going to wake them up today. They're going to win like 4 races today, Sarah.
Not going to let this one go, are you?
Well, I'm teasing you about that. I'm just saying. Well, this horse is
I
dropping
have a lot of respect for Bill Mott.
This horse is dropping precipitously out of a
Yes.
much better race run a day where you wanted to be forward, and there was a dramatically slow pace. I'm 1s and 12s here.
And they took their time to drop this horse in class. He'd run against some okay horses that were running big numbers and went on to run okay as well in the past. So I think that it's one that's worth considering. I just don't like how far behind he's been in some of his prior races.
We'll see what happens in the race. Thanks, Sarah. That's today's card. We are off in 1, 8, and 10. The stake races, however, do remain on the turf. Head over to Naira Bets if you're not a member. Use the promo code MATCH200 and we'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Check out track stats when you're over there. Also, Bankroll Builder, 50 to win in the Vosberg today, $20 back. A little bit of a tougher race, though. You had to suffer through if you bet on a Torpedo Anna in the cotillion.
Some dramatic moments.
If I read one more person telling me she had a bad trip in there, I'm literally going to throw up. If you think she had a bad trip, you don't know how to watch races. $300 buy-in. You have until post time today. Might be the 3rd race. I don't know exactly when. Check it out. You can find out exactly at nairabets.com/contest. This is what you've really been waiting for. I know you're excited. Try to control yourself. The cross-country pick 5 with 2 at Delaware, and then you've got the Vosberg Pilgrim and the off-the-turf 10th race in there as well.
Should we play a group ticket?
I'm just waiting to see what's placed up there where I can find out all the picks. And we're on from 12 to 6, covering all the action from today. Once again, Sarah, thank you. Chris Griffin, he's getting revved up. He'll be back with the reprise scratch and changes in just about 10 minutes. Have a great day.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.